All right, no. North Smithfield School Committee's now called to order 5 o'clock, 5:02, so I'll insert the time. First item is roll call.
Mrs. Bonas.
Here.
Mr. Cannell.
Here.
Mrs. Nardoli.
Here.
Mr. Pachetti.
Here.
Mr. LaFleur.
Here. Next item is school bus transportation.
Thank you,
Ms. Lindberg.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee has a backup in your packet. Specifically, I'm recommending changes be made to the contract for transportation services, page 7, section 6A, vote to delete, which it says the district shall provide offices in the bus parking to the contractor under terms and conditions described in Exhibit C. Page 11, second bullet, vote to delete or waive, which is duplicated elsewhere. If an alternative site is approved, no fuel charges or times can be charged to North Smithfield until within the town of North Smithfield. I recommend deleting or waiving that provision in light of what has transpired, and including the fact that the terminal actually is 3.7 miles from the high school, and in relationship to the Comstock, that was 3.6 or 7. So it's the same distance, and I just don't want to see them penalized. So in Exhibit C would be vote to delete. So I would recommend the committee vote to approve those addendum or amendments to the DACO contract as submitted and discussed.
Any further recommendations, pleasure? So moved by Mr. Connell?
Yeah, we accept the recommendation.
Okay. Second, Mrs. Nardoli? All right, any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions
Sure.
about just going through this.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I have a couple of questions, and I guess I directly present to you. The question I have is with regard to, we're deleting the whole Exhibit C. Does that mean DACO won't be in the Andrews School at all, or is that just for the, are we just talking about the parking?
They won't be there at all, Mr. Cannell. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's a shame that we have to do this, but I think it's a real shame.
Well, did you want to comment on the zoning board hearing, or should we pass that?
I was very disappointed in the, I was at the zoning board hearing, and I was really disappointed in the result, and I was very disappointed that a number, in my opinion, specifically like some of the evidence, and I'll give you an example, the board even said they didn't really have enough time to consider all our evidence that was presented, in particular the noise study. I forget the gentleman who prepared it, but we had the person there, and we had a lengthy study there, and they did not, I don't believe, they indicated enough time to consider it in full. At the start of the discussion, the chair of the the zoning board said, I'm sorry, the chair of the zoning board said that they would not, he had already made up his mind, we could discuss whatever stipulations we wanted, talking to the other members, but he had already made up his mind, and he was voting against it. So he announced that initially without listening to other feedback from other members on the board. I like to think we try to listen to each other before we make our decisions. Right. And I really think as a taxpayer in town, and a resident in town, I'd like to see that from my board, that everybody gets listened to before we make decisions. And I just can't help but say disappointed in that particular.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, I was extremely proud of our team. They were professional and just thorough and respectful. Mr. Kopax and Mrs. Pepler from DACO, Mr. Eddie, who came up, he's their operations or fleet manager, did a wonderful job addressing the fact that all of our buses actually burn or emit less than the new EPA standards. And Mr. Hamilton, who owns OHI, who we work with closely over the years, who actually was scheduled to fly out at 4 a.m. in the morning, but he came to testify. And I don't think he was treated too well. Am I leaving anybody else? Mr. DeQuattro did a great job. And Attorney Welch, I think you would have been proud. I think the team did a wonderful job, and it is what it is. DACO looked at about 6 or 7 sites in town, and really where they're at is really the best place. So, although it's slightly out of town, it's 3.7 or 3.8 miles away from the high school, and Comstock was 3.7. So I just hope that we don't penalize them for that, that's all.
No, and, you know, based on what my discussions with you after the meeting, I think the fact that they didn't want to hear any testimony or ignored most of the testimony or said they didn't have time, shows to me that they have a complete lack of understanding of what the whole issue is all about. You know, for some of the statements to be made that, you know, all those buses there are going to be a ticking time bomb because all that diesel will explode, was just an absolute, it was laughable because, as you know, it takes a lot of heat for diesel to explode. I think you'd have to have a nuclear bomb set off the diesel before anything would happen. And then, you know, I didn't know that, but to have a preconceived position even before taking any testimony is just absolutely wrong, and deserves no place on any board. No matter how bad you feel about a particular person, a particular department, it's just absolutely wrong to make those statements. And I couldn't agree more with you, Bill.
I just like to add one more thing. I know we want to move along, but Mr. Kopaz and the superintendent also presented for the school department that night, and they were both exemplary. And again, I don't want to speak in generalities, specifics. There was a recommendation, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent. The planning board's recommendation was described as timid by the chair. I believe the planning board recommendation was 5-0. It was 5-0 with some stipulations. Other members want to talk that, again, the chair characterized that as timid. Legally, we call 5-0 unanimous. We don't call it timid. Timid's a characterization that you can, you can read into what you want. That's an opinion. The fact is, it was 5-0. The fact that that's unanimous.
That's amazing.
Well,
that's a legal term, by the way, unanimous.
Again, thank you, Mr. Canal. I think that the board could be very proud of the people who represented you respectfully and professionally. I was in, the vote was the vote, and I went up and thanked them for their time after, met with the team, and we moved on. And so, hopefully with your support tonight, and DATCO, I have to say, has been just so really, just really good about the whole thing. We will miss them. They're great people to work with. The benefits of working there out of that terminal have been phenomenal. But it is what it is. So
Golden
we
opportunity.
move on.
Another golden opportunity.
So-
Okay. Any other discussion, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Related to that, I recommend the committee vote to authorize the chair or the superintendent to sign the addendum to the DATCO contract on behalf of the school committee. And the addendum will simply articulate the points in your cover memo.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation, with pleasure.
So moved.
So Mrs. Bonus, second. Second, Mrs. Sneddon, any discussion?
I just have a question. Have we been a quantifiable figure for if this is going to cost us more than if how much more is this costing us, the school department, or is it not?
For them to be,
Where they are now.
Where they are now.
Where they're going to go.
in terms of gas or?
Just in terms
Any
of
additional costs?
additional
So are we
costs.
paying rent? Do we have?
No, we have to pay, we'll pay them back roughly $27,000 for what they invested into the terminal site, cameras, etc. And that makes them whole, and so then whatever they expend on the terminal is at their expense. And they're also picking up the temporary, where they were parked temporary, for $750 a week, so they're picking that up, and they're not looking for us to pick that up.
And
So,
the appellate process to the zoning board would be who, the town council?
I'm sorry, please?
Who would be the next step? Who would be the appellate process?
I think it's Superior Court. I don't know.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
That's what our Mr. Attorney Welch had told us, that there's no appeal to the town council, it's usually to the Superior Court.
Maybe
That's
the
quite the
appeal-
powerful position they have.
Yeah, maybe the appeal would be to the new town council asking to reappoint a new zoning board. Anyway,
It might be awkward because technically it was listed as the school department and the city, the town and the.
It was actually,
board, right?
it was really a petition by the town/school department.
Right, so
So that's a really,
I don't think we could appeal, I don't know if we could appeal it to the town, if the town was a petitioner, you know, I mean, it's, I don't know, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I know, anyway, I was just curious, okay. All right, all those in favor of the signature by either myself or the superintendent, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. Mr. Lindberg, next item is monitor further questions.
thank you, Mr. Chair. We just want to thank Mr. Cannell and Mr. Pichetti. We've had some small group meetings this week and last week. I won't get into the discussions just so, I don't want to violate anybody's confidentiality. However, given my visit to the Department of Ed with Mr. De Silva and his assistant, Mr. Cadero, basically an extensive meeting where they confirmed everything that I had already shared with you from him, but I did it again. The project is not eligible for reimbursement. So I'm recommending, and so if I may, Mr. Chair, I'd like to start off by saying this disclaimer. My recommendation is exclusive of the lack of eligibility for reimbursement to the project at this time, and simply based upon educational and facility needs. That being said, I recommend that the committee vote to support the project with the addition stipulation that Building 10 at Hallowell School location remain intact with no renovations in order to address badly needed storage issues within the school department. And again, that recommendation is exclusive of the whole reimbursement issue, which I'm sure you want to take up. So it's strictly educational.
Well, let's get a motion on the floor, then we can open up for discussion and comment.
I'll move we accept the superintendent's recommendations as stated.
Okay, the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Pichetti, Mrs. Marinelli, discussion. Steve, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have no problem supporting the motion and the recommendation. I think in the end, we've always taken the position that we've always looked for reimbursement on anything we've done on capital improvements. Obviously, the dollar amount of $4.3 million is certainly something of significance that we could have been reimbursed for. With that being said, I think, as you stated earlier, we should obviously pursue whatever means if we can. And the worst they're going to say is no, like they've already said, is no.
Mr. Chair,
I don't normally like to do this kind of, because I don't want anybody pointing fingers back at us saying, hey, you could have gone for reimbursement, or here you go again, you're spending more money. And I know that's already out there, but the needs of the community, the maintenance of facilities has always been lacking. So whether you do it through a lease purchase bond, a 3-year process, whatever, I support it. I'd rather have the ride reimbursement, but you know what, in the end, let the people decide. That's what we were elected to do, make those decisions based on what we thought was the needs, and let the people decide on how they want to pursue supporting schools in the future.
Mr. Chair,
I only comment.
you and the committee certainly can tack on stipulations to my motion. Again, if you feel compelled that you need to make that point to the people and the taxpayers, you can tack on stipulations beyond what I did. I just looked at the educational facility needs. So you certainly can.
No, and I think we will. I would, to be honest with you. So
Would you prefer to tack them on now or after?
we can do separate motions.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with that.
Do a separate. Well, I think the issue would be, Mr. Chair, I think the issue is just that we're not going. There's no way with the time constraints that the Department of Education has that we can have a determination of reimbursement before November. We're not even close, if I may.
Right.
So I guess what we would be in a situation of saying here would be, because when originally we did this, we thought we were hoping, at least we thought, we were hoping we would have that we nailed down now, but with here's where we're at, it's not. So, that being the case, what we're talking about now is going back, I mean, I think the town council wants to see that we're supporting this. And what we're saying is we'll support it, but we want to make sure the following are in place.
Right.
The addition, we keep Halliwell, building 10, which has become kind of a football in this situation, but I think that we can make that, make that work. The completion of stage 2, and basically, maybe just some kind of language to say that it's also contingent upon, aggressive pursuit of the stage, of the reimbursement of the Department of Ed, and that the accommodation of help, that's really something we need to,
With the council.
we need to right. We're gonna need some funding from the council for that, to do some of the studies and the tests we're gonna need to be able to get the documents in place to do the stage 2. So yeah, it's a combined effort, that kind of thing. And I'm happy to go to the council, by the way, on Monday to present this, if that's,
If that's the intent of, I mean, you could add that to the motion if you'd like. That we include, the pursuit of stage 2 funding, or phase 2 funding. Reimbursement, but also, as you indicated, get the council to be as aggressive as they need to be. Because in the end, at one point, I don't know what the reimbursement was, 1 point.
Potentially a little less than 1.8 million.
All right, so less than
Yeah.
less than $1.8 million is a lot of money to just not have any chance. Roll the dice and let it go and see what happens.
I was scribbling some things down, so you're considering tacking on also, as part of the stipulation, that to support the aggressive pursuit of reimbursement, is that what you were saying,
Yes.
Mr. Cannell?
that's a
Following it, right,
aggressive pursuit and,
and also that the town council vote to do the same and approve stage 2 completion of necessary work? Or
And it has to be.
yeah. And we're looking as far as that we're all
they're
together.
hand in hand, but
Yeah, we're working, we're working together on this, that's not a situation where we're, we don't want it to be just us versus going one direction, the council going another, we want to, this whole project is something we're all trying to, get done. So it's-
Mr. Chair, separate motions, or do you want me to
No,
try to
you
do
can-
that?
If everybody's in agreement, make a motion, you're in agreement with
I
that?
can make the motion.
Oh, you made a motion.
Yeah, I've got,
I would
Bill
add that,
and,
but I don't think.
who seconded it? Both you two.
Yeah,
all right, I got it. I'm sorry.
Bill made the motion.
Yes, got that. And Don
Now,
seconded
Don-
it.
Donna and Chris seconded.
I'm proposing we add a stipulation, so, do we
Okay.
do all the old motion, or?
No, as long as you're in agreement by adding these 2 other motions, we can, unless you want to restate the motion.
I think we state the motion.
Okay, but you guys will withdraw your second?
Yeah.
Withdrawn. Okay.
So that original motion has been withdrawn, Mr.
All right.
It's going to be restated.
Go again?
Since you're taking minutes,
I'm
just
good.
clarifying for you.
Go ahead, Bill.
Gatekeeper.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I'm going to recommend that we support the
Superintendent's recommendation.
superintendent's recommendation regarding the school facilities task force report.
And-
I'm sorry, on the education facilities, and in particular, that's bond issue number 8, I believe, with these 3 stipulations, that we leave Halliwell building number 10 intact for now,
Yep.
and that will address storage issues. That we pursue the completion of stage 2 to ensure the project meets broad standards for construction and renovation. And that both the school committee and the town council work together, this is the third stipulation. That town council and school committee work together to ensure, to pursue aggressive pursuit of reimbursement from the Department of Education for those portions of the project that are reimbursable.
Okay.
And again, we're talking pretty much the stuff at the high school and the elementary school.
And
We're
we-
gonna need the tape.
No,
I think I got most of it.
we're basically agreeing with your recommendation
Yes.
on the original recommendation for building 10.
Yep.
With those additions, remain intact, the storage issues, and then we have the aggressive pursuit, reimbursement on the path,
And we
As
request that the
indicated
town
by right.
council
and request the town council do the same and approve the stage 2
Okay,
funding.
funding to complete the work for stage 2, phase 2.
got it.
And Mr. Chair, just further discussion, what I'm proposing to do on Monday night, and I guess is to maybe go to the council and say, when we say aggressive pursuit, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Some startup money for, some money to pay for the drawings and
For a second.
engineering we need for the project, kind of explain it and what, a little bit, some teeth in that, so, what is it?
Yes, Steve's got those numbers anyway for phase 2 funding.
Yeah.
It's budgeted,
It's
already-
budgeted. It's budgeted. And,
31 or 32, right around there.
Practically speaking, and speaking to Mr. De Silva, stage 1 has to be revised. That's not a heavy lift. Stage 2 is a heavy lift, and that's where you want to request that they approve. So Mr. Quattro and Mr. Copaz and I can roll up our sleeves and get going on it.
That's fine to go.
Yes.
Okay. So it was seconded by Mr. Bonus. Anybody else wants to second it, can do so. I think we all seconded it.
I think so. I have it made by Mr. Cannell, seconded by Chris Pachetti, Mr. Pachetti, Mrs. Naradowi, and Mrs. Bonus.
There you go.
And one thing just to remember is, that's going to go in front of the voters again for a special election.
Yes.
So we can get everything passed, get the bond passed, and then it's got to go in front of the voters again
Correct.
for approval.
For the reimbursement, right?
For the reimbursement,
To
yes.
get the reimbursement, we would need a second vote.
Like we discussed, the good part about it, Mr. Pachetti, is at least the public will know where they stand with that potential reimbursement.
Right. so-
I don't know the cost of that election. Maybe
Yeah, I
it's-
think we threw a number about 10 grand at it. or
Yeah,
whatever.
so if your reimbursement is $750,000, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think that's, important the public knows that, and we're very transparent with the public. This first vote just would authorize the issuance of the bond pursuant it.
Correct.
The reimbursement would take the second, would require a second vote, and that vote would have to be sometime after the vote.
Unfortunately, after the November 4th vote, because that's like putting the cart before the horse.
It has to happen within 6 months of stage 2 approval. They're 6 months, so once they approve stage 2 and you know what the reimbursement is, they expect a public vote within that time frame. 6 months after.
We'll also know after November 4th.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as stated and revised, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Unanimous? Anything else, Mr. Holmberg?
That's all I have.
That is it?
Thank you for making the time to meet tonight to address properties. Appreciate it.
Okay, motion adjourned by Mrs. Moda, second.
Second,
Second, Mr. Pachetti, excited.
I'm going to go back to the office.
That's what I said. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it.
So,